Hello, travelers and monster catchers abound. I'm Stella Ferris, and this is the Monster Catchers Journal podcast. Today I have a few more stories about my journeys as a glyph catcher. Also remember, the first 10 or 20 episodes, I was between the ages 10 and 16 years, so it was my early days of glyph catching. This first story I'm going to tell you is about a glyph called replion. And replion is a really cool glyph. It was a warm summer day on Nibiru. Our 2 suns and 3 moons beat down, making the climate almost the perfect temperature. I was headed to the Hectide coast to catch replion. He's part lizard, part lion. He has the stripes of a zebra, the feet and tail of a lizard, and he has the lion mane around his head. Anyways, the trek to the Hectide coast was grueling, but I trudged on. After crossing both the Unato Desert and wastelands, I found a way across a lava point, swung from vines and hanging rock, and crossed my final obstacle, the River Barren. It's an old dried-up sea. It took a while to cross the River Barren because I had to climb down from one side and back up the other side. I walked up to a clearing with an unnaturally green waterway. I was about to pull my glyph from my bag when I heard his horrific roar. Before I could grab my glyph, he lunged at me, scratching my face in the process. It's the first time I'd ever been hurt by a glyph. I stumbled back to my feet, set my glyph onto the ground, and set it. But replion got away, running back into the murky water he'd emerged from moments earlier. Though I didn't catch the replion, I have a strong admiration for his strength and beauty. The next story I want to talk about involves the croc-hyena. It's part crocodile with the strong force of a crocodile tail and the lengthy body of a hyena. The croc-hyena lives in the Unato Desert in large nests we call burrows. I walked up to the croc-hyena burrows. I knew I had to be quick and quiet to keep the croc-hyenas from attacking as a pack, or I would surely die. I walked up close to a lone croc-hyena and placed my glyph on the ground. I set the glyph and sent in Beak. Beak was doing great at first, weaving in and out of every move thrown at him by croc-hyena. Beak stopped to use Pharaoh's light, but the croc-hyena smashed his tail brutishly into Beak, knocking Beak into a large stone. Beak, return, I yelled, placing my glyph and putting it away when he was in. Croc-hyena was about to lunge at me, but the glyph I'd placed earlier pulled Croc-hyena in. And just like that, I had another glyph to add to my sanctuary. The next glyph I want to talk about is sickle. This story takes place on an entirely different planet called Tidera. It's a planet that only gets one type of weather, winter, and is stuck in perpetual night. The glyph I was after this time was called sickle. It's part mole, part polar bear. I borrowed the SS Voyager and flew me and my glyphs over to the Nova Pocket. Each planet pocket has a name. In the Nova Pocket, I landed on Tidera. I opened the hatch and drove the rover out into the middle of the planet. sickle would be in the center of Tidera, burrowed in purple ice. I was searching when I came to a large prairie. Stepping from the rover, I stepped closer, trying to get a better look, because I wanted to see them up close. But I tripped over a sickle hole. At that moment, I heard a small laughter coming from one of the sickle holes. It was a sickle laughing at me, taunting me. "You think that's funny?" I said. Standing up and placing a glyph, I set the glyph ready to catch the sickle. But the sickle was determined to make it hard as he dived into his burrow. And he kept jumping in and out of his burrow, but it didn't help him as I caught him a few moments later. And then a cop came pulling up. Luckily, I put the sickle glyph and his glyph into my backpack, so. "Who are you?" the cop asked me. "I'm Stella Ferris," I replied. "Oh, another Luon Academy tourist. Leave immediately and don't steal anything," the cop said sternly as she left. I went back home, but rather than listen, I took my new glyph home and put him in the ice biome of my sanctuary. So this next story is about a glyph called tidera. Much like the last story, I had to travel to another planet in the Nova Pocket. The planet was called Pyrothus. It's one of the 2 planets in the Nova Pocket. Anyways, tidera is a mixture of a tiger and a golem. He lives in a nest on top of the volcano. I climbed to the top of the volcano, only stopping as I heard an angry growl. It was tidera, and he was angry. This was bad because tigerams are aggressive, and they have still slash. Rather than fight, I sent out Chaos Serpent, and he coiled around tidera while I placed my glyph and set it. I called back Chaos Serpent, and tidera was taken into the glyphid. When coming down the volcano, I found a small village where I met a new friend. Her name was Sophia. But I had to cut it short, and that is how I got tidera in my sanctuary. The next glyph I want to tell you about is lumipup. The location of the lumipup is in between Hyperion, which is Nibiru's heaven, and Nibiru. We have devices that allow us to go into the land of Pentheos and come back. Pentheos is the spirit realm of Nibiru. Anyways, I stepped into the machine, its electric hum killing all noise. I closed my eyes, only opening them when I knew I was in Pentheos. It was dark and there was a fog that clung to the air, almost suffocatingly. I walked until I found the glowing ethereal tree. Sitting at the top was a lumipup. He could talk. He's practically the only glyph that can. I know what you are here for, a low monotone voice said. You do, I replied. Yes, I've waited decades to be useful. You want me to be your glyph? I accept, the low monotone voice spoke yet again. I set my glyph on the ground and set it. I have 3 questions before that glyph sucks me in. Where do you hail from? The glyph asked. Nibiru. It's my planet. Terraformia is my village, I replied. A good world, a great village. 2. A man is only as good as his honor. What do you honor most? The glyph asked. I honor friendship the most, I replied. Great, great. And last, will you promise to be my best friend and add me to your party? The glyph asked. Of course, I replied, right before lumipup was caught. After leaving the world of Pentheos, I took Glowfish out of my party and added lumipup. I put Glowfish in my sanctuary. You see, I kept my promise to lumipup, and I learned more about glyph hunting. Well, that's all I have for you today. For this glyph anyways. We'll have more glyphs coming up. This next glyph we're going to talk about today is called Lunara, the owl-fox glyph. The wind howled through the ancient forest of Elysian Hollow, where the trees seemed to whisper secrets to one another. The moonlit light pierced through the canopy, casting a silver glow over the twisted roots and glowing mushrooms that lined the path. I was there on a mission, clutching my glyphit device in my hand, determined to capture the elusive glyph I had been tracking for days. Lunara, a hybrid of an owl and a fox. Lunara's body was slender like a fox, with soft silvery fur that shimmered under the moonlight. Its head resembled that of a great owl, with glowing ember eyes that seemed to pierce through the soul. It had massive wings, feathered like an owl's, but tipped with fox fur at the edges. Its tail swayed behind it, wisp of glowing light trailing in its wake. I crouched behind a cluster of glowing ferns, barely breathing, as I watched Lunara perch gracefully on a low tree branch. It emitted a soft, melodic hum that seemed to calm the forest. My journal warned me. Lunara was cunning and intelligent, using its wings to vanish into the sky like a ghost. Beak sat perched on my shoulder, its sharp eyes locked on Lunara. You ready? I whispered. Beak gave a faint screech in response. I sent Beak into the air, shimmering tail feathers catching the moonlight as it soared toward Lunara. The owl fox immediately took flight, dodging Beak with elegant precision. I activated the glyphit, sending a beam of energy towards Lunara, but it twisted midair and escaped. I called in lumipup next. Its glowing fur lit up the shadowy forest, disorienting Lunara with its lunar howl. The owl fox screeched, flapping its glowing wings as it tried to escape the dazzling light. While lumipup held its attention, beak swooped in and unleashed its aura burst, forcing Lunara to drop lower to the forest floor. Finally, Turticat lumbered towards its sturdy shell, glowing faintly. Lunara, cornered, let out a powerful light wave screech, but Turticat's shell absorbed the blow. With nowhere left to run, I placed my pyramid, which expanded into a shimmering net of energy. Lunara screeched and thrashed, but the device absorbed its glowing form. Panting, I retrieved the pyramid, which now pulsed with Lunara's calm yet watchful energy. With the teamwork of Beak, lumipup, and Turticat, this elusive glyph was finally mine. So the next glyph that we want to talk about is Tidera, the shark stingray glyph. The glowing turquoise waters of the Trilect Sea stretched out before me. A breathtaking yet dangerous domain somewhere beneath the surface lurked Tidera, a hybrid of shark and stingray, known for its sleek, silver-scaled body, glowing blue eyes, and venom-tipped tail. The journal described it as both ferocious and elusive, a predator that ruled the depths. However, this mission posed an additional challenge. Reaperfish, one of my trusted glyphs, could not touch water. If it did, it would perish instantly. As I prepared to descend into the watery labyrinth, I took a look at Reaperfish, who swam effortlessly through the sands at the shoreline. Its spectral body left faint trails of glowing particles as it moved its fins, shifting like liquid shadows. "I'm counting on you," I whispered. Reaperfish couldn't join me in the water, but its ability would be crucial in this capture. I dove in, leaving Reaperfish to patrol the shore. Beneath the surface, the water was as chilly as it was beautiful. The coral reefs glowed faintly, and shimmering schools of fish darted past. I activated the pyramid tracker, which pulsed faintly, guiding me deeper. Suddenly, the light seemed to vanish, and a massive shadow passed overhead. Tidera had arrived. It circled me. Slowly, its glowing eyes fixed on me, as if sizing me up. Its stingray-like wings flared, and with a sudden burst of speed, it lunged. I barely twisted it out of the way as its jagged teeth snapped inches from my arm. "Now," I shouted, and Reaperfish waited just beyond the shoreline, unleashing its spectral surge. The attack sent a ripple of shadowy energy coursing through the sand and into the water, disorienting Tidera. It thrashed momentarily confused, giving me a chance to send in Chaos Serpent. Chaos Serpent erupted from the water's depths, its massive coiling body sending waves crashing in all directions. It roared and lashed out with its tempest coil, creating powerful underwater currents that forced Tidera back. The shark stingray tried to counter, darting through the water with astonishing speed, but Chaos Serpent's sheer size and power kept it at bay. Just as Tidera prepared to strike again, Shadow Claw leapt from the rocky cliffs above, landing with precision on a coral outcrop near the water. It unleashed a spectral claw slash, its glowing talons raking through the air and hitting Tidera's tail, slowing it down. Seizing the opportunity, I activated my pyramid device, which is a glyph. Its glowing net of energy shot out, surrounding Tidera. The shark stingray thrashed wildly, trying to break free, but with Chaos Serpent creating powerful waves, Shadow Claw striking from above, and Reaperfish disrupting from the shore, Tidera had no escape. My glyph absorbed Tidera's energy, and the water grew calm once more. I surfaced, gasping for air, clutching the glowing pyramid in triumph. Reaperfish swam up to me, its shadowy form rippling across the sand as if it, too, were celebrating. With teamwork and careful strategy, Tidera, the ruler of the Trilect Sea, was now a part of my team. It was a capture I would never forget. But he will not be part of my team because I have to put him in my sanctuary. So, I had to. I already have him in my sanctuary, but So this next story is about Thornquake, the bear porcupine glyph. The Shadow Woods were a dangerous place with their towering trees and constant darkness. Was hunting Thornquake, a fearsome hybrid of bear and porcupine. Thornquake's massive body was covered in thick fur and jagged glowing quills. It was said to be territorial and destructive, stomping in the ground to create tremors that knocked down trees. I followed a trail of destruction, uprooted trees, claw marks on bark, and shattered rocks. The ground trembled beneath my feet as Thornquake emerged from the shadows, roaring, its glowing green quills pulsing with energy, ready to launch at any moment. I called upon Lumipup first, whose glowing fur lit up the dark woods. Thornquake roared and launched a barrage of quills, but Lumipup darted out of the way with surprising agility, using lunar howl to disorient the massive glyph. While Thornquake was distracted, Turdicat charged in, and its sturdy shell deflected the quills with ease, and it rammed into Thornquake with a powerful shell spin. Enraged, Thornquake stomped the ground, creating tremors that sent both Lumipup and Turdicat stumbling. That's when I brought out Beak, who took to the skies and unleashed a blinding aura burst, forcing Thornquake to shift its eyes. The bear porcupine roared, swiping at the air, but Beak remained out of reach. Finally, I sent in Shadowclaw, whose glowing talons slashed at Thornquake's legs, forcing it to stumble. With the massive glyph weakened, I activated my glyphid, which expanded into a shimmering net. Thornquake roared one last time, its quills glowing brightly, but the glyphid and its energy enveloped it. The massive creature disappeared into the device, and the forest grew still. Holding my glowing glyphid, I marveled at Thornquake's raw power. With the help of Lumipup, Turdicat, Beak, and Shadowclaw, I had claimed one of the most dangerous glyphs in Nibiru's woods. The next glyph I want to talk about is Thornfeather, the porcupine crow glyph. The dense thorn-covered forest of briarwood were no place for the faint-hearted. My journal described Thornfeather, a glyph that combined the cunning of a crow with the defense power of a porcupine. Its sleek black feathered body was adorned with sharp glowing quills that could shoot out at will. Thornfeather was known to set traps and use its sharp intellect to evade capture. The undergrowth crackled beneath my boots as Turdicat padded beside me, its glowing shell a beacon of reassurance. Suddenly the forest went eerily silent, and I spotted Thornfeather perched high in a bramble-covered tree, its quills glowing faintly in the dim light. Beak, draw it out, I whispered. My swift companion shot into the air, its iridescent wings shimmering as it released an aura burst to blind Thornfeather. The crow porcupine screeched in anger, flapping its dark wings and launching quills towards us. Beak evaded with ease, but the quills embedded themselves into the trees around us, glowing and humming ominously. Watch out for traps, I warned, and just as I spoke, the ground shifted beneath me. Thornfeather had lured us into a snare of glowing vines. I quickly summoned Lumipup, whose lunar howl caused the trap to disintegrate, freeing me. Thornfeather swooped down, aiming to strike, but Shadowclaw leapt into action, its glowing talons slashing at the glyph's wing. Thornfeather screeched and retreated, circling above. This time Chaos Serpent joined the battle, its massive coil surging through the underbrush with a tempest coil that sent Thornfeather crashing back into the trees. Even so, the glyph wasn't finished. It released a burst of quills, forcing all of us to dodge. That's when I called in Reaperfish. Though it swam through the sandy forest floor rather than the air, Its phantom surge created shadowy tendrils that wrapped around Thorn Feather, pinning it to the ground. With Thorn Feather immobilized, I finally set my device down and set it. The glowing net expanded, surrounding the glyph as it screeched and thrashed. Finally, the light faded, and Thorn Feather's energy was absorbed into the pyramid. I picked it up with a grin, knowing the cunning and versatility of this new glyph would be invaluable. And the last glyph I want to talk about is called Glimmer Fin, the jellyfish fox. The shimmering shores of Luminous Cove were unlike any place I'd ever seen before. The water glowed with bioluminescence, and strange lights danced beneath the waves. My journal spoke of Glimmerfin, a glyph that combined the ethereal beauty of a jellyfish with the agility of a fox. Its translucent, glowing body moved gracefully through the air and water, leaving trails of light in its wake. However, it was also deadly. Its tendrils carried a paralyzing venom. I stood at the water's edge with reaper fish gliding through the sand beside me. While reaper fish couldn't touch water, its connection to the sand terrain would help us lure Glimmerfin closer. I activated my glyphid tracker, which pulsed faintly, and soon a glow emerged from beneath the waves. Glimmerfin floated gracefully to the surface, its fox-like face framed by glowing jellyfish tendrils that moved hypnotically. It spotted me immediately, its glowing eyes narrowing before it launched itself into the air, darting with fox-like agility. "Or a beak, let's go," I shouted. My loyal glyph soared upward, releasing an aura burst to disorient the Glimmerfin. The light dazed it briefly, but Glimmerfin countered with a sweep of its tendrils, releasing glowing orbs of venom into the air. Orabeak dodged, but the orbs landed near me, sizzling as they hit the sand. I called in Lumipup, whose glowing body lit up the shoreline. Its lunar howl disrupted the orbs, neutralizing their venom. Glimmerfin, now agitated, dove into the water, moving too quickly for us to follow. That's when I summoned Chaos Serpent, whose massive coils created whirlpools with its Tempest coil. The spinning currents forced Glimmerfin back toward the shore where Shadowclaw was waiting. With a leap, Shadowclaw raked its glowing talons across Glimmerfin's side, forcing it to land on the shore. The glyph's tendrils lashed out, releasing another burst of venom, but Reaperfish countered with its phantom surge. Shadowy tendrils emerged from the sand, wrapping around Glimmerfin and holding it in place. Seeing my chance, I activated my glyphid. Its glowing energy engulfed the struggling glyph, and with a final flash of light, Glimmerfin disappeared into the glyphid. As the glowing device pulsed in my hand, I knew Glimmerfin's beauty and deadly agility would make it a valuable addition to my team. Once again, my glyphid had proven their strength and teamwork, helping me capture one of Nibiru's most elusive creatures. But for now, I'll just have to put him in my sanctuary, because I don't have any room on my team. I can only have 6 glyphs.